Alright, so just ranked up, but you guys are about to see the greatest game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever played. Okay? Okay. Match history? Okay. This is my rank up game. Okay. My hand is a little bricky, and our opponents Kieran, pop Flamebird, summon Kieran, pass. Interesting. So I hard drop the trap, not what I want to see. Activate barrier, and my opponent scoops. Yeah. Now the thing is, I would have had to do something funky. I would have had to, if my opponent had let me continue, I would have had to tribute Driver plus Valor for Skull Guardian to continue to play. So it's not like my hand was fantastic either, but you know, it is better than Kieran Flamebird's pass. I will say that. So here is the abomination of a voiceless voice list that I ended up settling on with a lot of Handtrap. And believe me, I tried so hard to make this a deck where I just didn't jam in Handtraps into it. Like my initial build had stuff like Talents and Enemy Controller as a alternative to Handtraps, and it was just not worth it. It's just not worth your opponent being able to combo off. Like, if your opponent resolves their combo against you, like, their boards are so hard to play through, especially now Yubel is Ibly locking and, like, sprite elfing you and, like, making their, like, stuff untargetable and all that stuff. And every deck makes follow-up. It's just, it's not worth trying to break boards. Like, that's the thing. It's just you have to run Handtraps this tournament. It's just optimal, and I just really don't like that part about mod, like specifically 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! It feels like it's just you gotta open Handtraps against your opponent, or you just die. And like Enemy Controller is such a cool card because Enemy Controller plus Diviner is insane. You sack your Diviner, you get to send Intis instead of Trias because you already fulfilled the tribute, and then you get the pop a card, and you can dodge stuff like Imperm and targeted negation, and then you also get the trigger. You summon low from your deck, you get ended out of that too, and you take your opponent's best monster, so you like cleared 2 to 3 interruptions already just by that. Even that interaction, it's still not worth it to run the board breakers over Handtraps. There's like one game you'll see where I opened all my going second cards, and I like broke my opponent's board, and I still lost that game, and like that was like, and so here instead you get this build, and I guess I'll explain why it's 47 cards. First, I guess I should have left off with this. What's my opinion of Voiceless Voice after playing it for like 50 games in like master rank? So surprisingly, this deck is the best going first deck I've played in a while. Like, I know Voiceless Voice is good at playing going first because it plays through Handtraps and stuff like that. I didn't realize that like this was like how good this deck actually is. Because if you open basically any other additional enemy piece, every additional enemy piece you draw in your hand, like, you know, Barrier or Pre-Prep or Saphira, or even just hard drawing Skull Guardian, hard drawing any of the rituals, like, and Nadir Servant, which I will get to later because I know this isn't standard. Opening any additional copies lets you play through any additional hand trap. Like, it was like pretty routine that I would be able to play through multiple hand traps going first. And the other advantage when you're playing Voiceless Voice is that Maxi, you don't care about Maxi so much. That much. You can very you can probably usually, pretty much anytime you don't summon Diviner, you can end on at least Skull Guardian plus low, which is the Omni Negate, plus whatever, plus Barrier, and then whatever other Voiceless spell and traps that you hard drew, or like other engine pieces, for example. So like if you hard drew a Barrier, then you can actually get a Blessing or a trap on top of your Barrier plus your Skull Guardian plus low. Like, you're only giving your opponent one draw most of the time. Maxi is only really bad when you open Diviner and you have to commit to Diviner, because then that gives your opponent one draw off the Trias, one draw off the low summon, and then one draw off the Skull Guardian. So that's not ideal. But other than that, you don't really care about playing the Maxi with this deck, which is like a huge advantage compared to most decks in Master Duel. And then even stuff like Shifter, which you would think Shifter would be very high impact versus this deck. I mean, I'm not saying it's not good versus Voiceless Voice, but Voiceless Voice is one of the best decks at playing through Shifter. That's like that's like still a deck that relies on the grave. Like, it plays through much better than Yubel and Fire King, for example, because all you have to do is just summon Skull Guardian, and then Skull Guardian can search low, and then you just normal summon the low, right? You still end on at least Skull Guardian low plus Barrier, and then there's a very good chance that you also had a way to get to like one of your other Voiceless spell traps as well. You don't have to bring the low back with the Skull Guardian. In fact, most of the times the way you would play this deck or Ritual Summon Skull Guardian is that you would ideally have low plus Skull Guardian in your hand already, and then you either use Saphira or the Ritual spell to Ritual Summon the Skull Guardian without normal summoning the low first. That way, it plays around Bestial, so you summon Skull Guardian, you try to summon back the low. If they have a Bestial, then no big deal. You just Skull Guardian searched a second low, and because you didn't commit your normal summon to the low in the first place, you can just search a second low and normal summon it, and then it'll be just fine like that. You still get your full board through the Bestial, and doing that play also plays through the aforementioned Shifter as well. And if this deck can play through Shifter and Maxi, which is like the two worst hand traps to play against, then like it can play through Ash, Imperm, all of that stuff. Like, half the time you can easily search Seravis, just hard search Seravis to negate the Impermanent Veiler anyways to make that ineffective. Like, honestly, probably the most effective hand trap versus you is Droll, and Droll is not the most popular right now. So yeah, this deck, I managed to get to like an 80% plus win rate going first, which is probably one of the highest win rates I've had going first out of all the decks I've played in Master Rank. Now, going second it's a different story. A Ritual Reliant deck that requires multiple cards to do its plays, and is relatively it's not like the most linear. Like, we're not talking about normal summon Alistair here, but obviously you are limited in the number of plays you can do. You don't have for example, your X deck is not as much of a toolbox for this deck as it is for the other decks in the format, like the aforementioned Yubel and Fire King Snake Eyes. So your pushes are more telegraphed, and like in general, like it's more obvious what you're trying to do. So going second, it's a lot easier to interrupt from your opponent, and that's probably another reason why my board breaker post that I initially used didn't work so hot, because I mean, this is just not a deck that's naturally good at playing into boards and disruptions. So that's why I have all of these hand traps. So yeah, Veiler, Ash, Imperm, Maxi, those are standard. Then I threw in Gamma, and I threw in Bestial Drewstrom. So now I'm playing a 16 hand traps in a 47 card deck. And 47 card deck, I know it seems like a lot, but this is like sort of the Rescue Ace philosophy, in that this is a deck that it's not as hampered by Maxi as like most meta decks. So the big advantage of playing 40 is that you draw your limited outs Maxi in like your Callby and the Ash. But since this deck can play through Maxi pretty decently, it's not as big of a deal to not have Maxi. So instead, I valued even if my deck size increased, I valued the higher number of non-engine, especially the higher number of hand traps, because you need to hand trap your opponent at least once in order to have a chance to play with this deck. You're not gonna break an entire like full end board from one of the top decks in this format with just the engine in this deck, unfortunately. And I guess I'll go over like some of the less conventional choices. I think most of the standard voice-to-voice ratios are pretty solved and like just standard right now. Like low diviner, obviously you run these at 3. You run 3 of this, the 1 Saravis, the 1 Trias for the diviner. The pre-prep, I see some people not maxing pre-prep. I think I think pre-prep is like, honestly, it's the best card in this. Like, pre-prep is basically just Saphira. A lot of times pre-prep can even be better than Saphira, because like, you know, pre-prep doesn't play into stuff like Bestios or Called By as much as Saphira does, and pre-prep is a spell, so that's important for fulfilling the summoning requirements for Saravis, whereas just Saphira would not let you summon Saravis, whereas a pre-prep would, because it's of the extra spell count. And then, you know, 2 prayers, 3 barrier, 1 radiance, 1 blessing, and then the 4 rituals. So the 4 rituals, obviously the 2 guardians and the Saravis you have to run. I'm running Pendulumgraph over the second Saravis. I know this is like not as good of a draw as Saravis, obviously, but I like going into Pendulumgraph honestly more than I like going into Saravis when I have the hands that enable me to ritual summon during my opponent's turn. For example, like the 2 card combos where I end with like a blessing to allow me to ritual summon a second ritual on my opponent's turn. I prefer to go Pendulumgraph over Saravis because of the existence of this one card in Master Duel that every deck basically runs, or like a 70-80% of decks runs, and that's Called By the Grave. And Pendulumgraph is very safe to ritual summon on your opponent's turn, because you don't get blown out by something like Called By the Grave. That's why I also only run one Dynamono, because I don't like going into Dynamono, because that also hard loses the Called By. So for example, right, say you have Skull Guardian plus low and a blessing up, right? And then your opponent summons a monster, and then you blessing to ritual summon the Saravis by sacking a low. If your opponent has Called By, that is terrible. That's like a blowout for you, because then you lose the low, so now the low doesn't summon itself back to place the trap, and then you also lose the Skull Guardian negate, because now you no longer have a low in circulation because it got Called By. So that one Called By just traded for 2 of your interruptions right there, and that's not good. I'll say that. Instead, if you were, for example, to go for Pendulumgraph Magician, a Pendulumgraph Dragon, and then sacking a low, if your opponent has Called By, that's fine. You just negate the Called By with the Pendulumgraph, and then the low guarantees to summon itself back, and then you still guarantee to be able to place the trap for another interruption. And then, you know, if they don't have Called By, Pendulumgraph is still a spell negate. You know, majority of decks will still play spells in this format. You will have something good to negate with Pendulumgraph anyways. And obviously when Tenpai eventually comes over here, the fact that Pendulumgraph can now summon Meteor Burst will be a huge boon in the future versus Tenpai, because negating all your opponent's Tenpai monsters affects the Synchro Summon in the battle phase. Like, that kind of just wins the matchup if they can't out the Meteor Burst. So yeah, that's also why I made the Pendulumgraph, because I know in the future I'm going to be running this anyways. So, and then I would be cutting the second Saravis, so I don't have. So I'm cheap, and I didn't craft the second Saravis, because you can see I'm kind of low on UR CP right now. But yeah, that's my reasoning, mainly my reasoning for running Pendulumgraph over the second Saravis. And Nadir Servant. So Nadir Servant is also an uncommon card. Most people either just don't run anything in this slot, or they're running like pots in this slot, like a pot of prosperity and sometimes extravagant, stuff like that. I think Nadir Servant is way better than pots. Like, resolving one Nadir Servant, it's like resolving an extravagance and prosperity in the same card. Because how you do this is, you go Nadir Servant, you send Garura, you add Maximus, you draw a card. Then you special Maximus, banishing the Garura, and then you send Ferrijit, plus Herald. So now you get another draw off the Fairy Sheet, and then you get the search of Ritual Monster. I don't know why I keep saying Pendulum Monster. This is a goddamn Ritual deck. So that one Nadir Servant got you 2 draws and a search of a Ritual Monster, and it got you a level 8 body. And this fulfills, that Maximus fulfills the entire requirements for a Ritual summon of any of your Ritual Monsters. So it's a spell, you know, to fulfill the summon requirement of Sarava. So this card does like 5 different things in one. Like you'll see in the replays just how much utility Nadir Servant gives to you, and how much power, how much stronger it is to resolve a Nadir Servant versus resolving a Pot of Prosperity. Now the main downside is obviously Maximus with Nadir Servant at 2. Drawing Maximus without Nadir Servant isn't as good as drawing Maximus by itself with no Nadir Servant is obviously not as good, and drawing Nadir Servant with Maximus together is obviously disastrous. But Maximus, even if you just hard open it, it's not actually dead a lot of the times. As long as you have access to low, you can make your Maximus live, because you can go low into Linkuriboh into Secure Gardener, which you would do normally for your 2-card combos that let you end on Blessing. But you can always put the Linkuriboh in grave as long as you have access to low, and then because the Linkuriboh is grave, then you can always summon the Mannequin Maximus from your hand, even if you don't open Nadir Servant with it. And then it's still a good card that way. You still get like a +1 out of it, plus a filter, plus the free Ritual body. Now, a bigger downside would be if this backfires versus you. Like if you're playing against a deck where that actually benefits off of being able to send 2 monsters. I'll say this right now, that's never happened to me, and I don't think it's worth worrying about that. Because there's only like a few decks I can think of that would actually benefit off of sending 2 cards off of the Maximus. That would be 1, the Mirror Match, 2, Branded, and I don't even know if there's a third one. Like, I guess Stun, that's running Golconda, so they have like Albaz fusions in their extra deck. I suppose fair if you're playing blind versus stun, they could plus off it. But like the point is, those decks comprise of like what, at most maybe 15% of the meta, and then even then that's only a problem when you're going first and you don't know you're playing against them, because obviously if you're going second, you would play accordingly. You probably wouldn't summon the Maximus that way. But yeah, again, I've never triggered my opponents. I've never gone first, resolved Nadir Servant, and my opponent plussed off of the Maximus send. So I'll say that right now, it's not worth worrying about that as of this moment. If Voiceless and Branded together both somehow get extremely more popular over the next few months, then yeah, maybe that could be a real downside. But for now, I don't think it's I don't think you need to respect that. And yeah, for the extra deck, so because we're running Nadir, I put in the second copy of Intis, because first of all, you can just send 2 Intis off of 1 Nadir, you know, 1 off Nadir and 1 off Maximus, but also you're going to send, you can send Intis off Diviner sometimes too, so it's just worth it to have the second one if you're running Nadir Servant. Then obviously you need to run the Garura, and then the Herald, and then the Tri-Brigade. These are the 5 cards that you generally will send off Nadir. And then I just included the 6-1 Pack Bit. You probably don't need this. In theory, yes, you can send this off Nadir Servant. In practice, your opponent's probably going to have a negate up anyways, so it doesn't matter whether you're sending Intis or Pack Bit most of the time, because it's just going to bait out and negate anyway usually. And I've never sent Pack Bit with Nadir or Maximus, so this could probably be something else. Like I'm not running Typhon, as you can see, but this could definitely just be a Typhon, and it would probably be fine. I just, you know, Typhon's weird in this deck because you're gonna make Typhon, then you're gonna have a low with 50 attack just randomly chilling on the board without the Skull Guardian protection. Like I haven't missed Typhon, but also I've never used Pack-Bit either, so Typhon might just be a better inclusion as the 15th slot from this. And then the 14th slot is Meteor Burst Dragon. You don't need this right now. It doesn't really do too much, but in the future when Tenpai comes, you're gonna want to reserve the room in the extra deck for this, so I'm just putting this in here for now. You summon this off of the Pendulumgraph. Chaos Angel, you make this off of low plus Trias level 1 plus level 9, light Chaos Angel. Linkuriboh plus Secure Garna, you need this package just to trigger your blessing and to make Dogmatic and Maximus live sometimes as well. IP Masquerena, I see some Voiceless builds not running this. I think you're crazy. The IP Masquerena is part of your best end boards. Basically, whenever I get to resolve Diviner completely, I always want to try to end on IP Masquerena if my hand isn't completely crazy, because IP Masquerena just gives you. This might be the best deck to actually take advantage of Masquerena, because you have a barrier protection and you likely have a Saravis in hand for targeting protection. So you have an IP that's protected from targeting and that it can't be run over. So your opponent can basically never bait out your Masquerena early. You always get to choose the off-no time to use it. And by extension, that also goes into Appaloosa. You can go IP into Appaloosa, and then it starts getting really degenerate, because now you have an Appaloosa that also can't be attacked into because of barrier, and it can't be targeted because you probably have a Saravis, and then you just get to resolve all of its negates. So yeah, and then SP Little Knight is like another option. You can go into off Masquerena, and it's fucking SP Little Knight. You're running this card if you're playing a deck in 2024, and Goddess is to out random cards, because this one thing I've noticed is that this deck has trouble outing towers like cards and outing stuff that's untargetable and undestructible. So yeah, I just put this in. You can also go into this off IP too. And oh yeah, Dino Mondo. Only to run one Dino Mondo, because I hate going to Dino Mondo. Because the Dino Mondo play, you pretty much only go into if the only engine in your hand is low. Like if you only have low and like 4 hand traps, that's like when you make Dino Mondo. That's just because then that gets you an extra interrupted. And even then, I don't even like doing that, because once again, this hard plays in the Call by the Grave, which everybody is running. And if you get Call by the Grave on the Dynamondo, you like literally lose the game. You have nothing left. It's so risky to go into this. Like most of the time I use Dynamondo, it's because I'm using it going second, or I'm using it playing into a board, and I'm using it as a board breaker. I'm not using it primarily as a setup card. Like, yeah, sure, if like I use this to break a board and then it lives into my opponent's turn, and then I can use its effect, then I'll use it to summon back the Skull Guardian and stuff like that. But I'm not usually making this turn 1 as part of my board or anything, because that's too risky in my opinion. Yeah, but let's get into some of the replays of this deck. So this is going to be a replay that showcases one of the very many reasons I love Nadir Servant in this deck. So this hand's pretty good, right? I get Diviner and it gets Gamma. So normally, Diviner, a Gamma on your normal summon in this deck, usually pretty bad. You usually have to open like a 2-3 card combo to play through it. But when you open Nadir, it's a 1 card combo to play through it. Granted that I do have to Call by the Grave for the Ash. Thank you, Call by the Grave, for being a totally balanced card that totally doesn't disproportionately help the player going first in a game where going first is such a huge advantage already. So anyway, we're going to send a Garura for Maximus, draw another card, draw into the tiers, and then special Dogmatic on Maximus, and then Maximus is gonna send 2, and we never get punished. Also, when my opponent sent King of the Pharaohs, I was like, what in the fuck am I playing against? But yeah, you send Tri-Brigade Ferrojeet and Herald, so now you get a draw and a search essentially. So I'm going to Ferrojeet first, see what I draw, and I draw into a Blessing so I can put back this Trias, and then I'm gonna add Prayer, and I'm gonna use Prayers of the Voiceless to special summon, to ritual summon the Ogdoadic Pendulumgraph in my hand. This will trigger the Low now to summon itself back, and then Low will trigger to place Barrier, and then Barrier is going to add Saphira, and I'm going to Saphira dump the second Prayers to add Skull Guardian, and now I can use the Saphira to ritual summon the Skull Guardian using the Dogmatica Maximus as the entire tribute. Love that part of Dogmatica. Love that part of Nadir Servant. It does so much for the deck, and now I can add Saravis, special Saravis, and then just place Blessing into Voices, and then Blessing will add back the Saphira for follow-up on the next turn. And yeah, this is through this is my Diviner getting Gamut. We still, because of the Nadir Servant, I was able to end on Skull Guardian, Pendulumgraph, Saravis, and then hard drawing into the Blessing. So now I have Blessing plus Barrier to Ritual Summon Saravis twice on my opponent's turn. And my opponent's playing. If you probably didn't, if you haven't figured out by now, they're playing a actual base deck. So I'm sorry. So I have to negate the Fossil decks. I thought they were on Dinosaurs, so I'm like, I'm not letting you get the Misk. And then they're gonna Pot Prosperity, and this is where I change Saravis to summon the Saravis from the deck. And then Prosperity reveals that they're on the Ogdoadics, the base deck. And they're going to add Snake Rain, which is very unfortunate because they're adding it in the face of an Omni Negate with 3 cards in hand, and they have to discard for cost, so that's just really unfortunate for them. That yeah, I'm sorry, you were a base player for playing fucking Ogdoadics in Master Rank, but yeah, I mean the Nadir Servant is just too strong. Oh, this is another showcase of the Nadir Servant. So this hand normally, these 4 cards alone, double Saphira plus Ash. I mean, technically, I can summon Skull Guardian with these cards, but it'll be really bad because I have to sack both the Saphira and the Ash to summon the Skull Guardian, which is like not ideal. So the Nadir Servant fixes all of the problems with this hand. So now I get to send Garura to draw a card and add Maximus. Now I have a card that I have a light monster that fulfills the entire tribute for Skull Guardian. Not only that, now I can use Saphira to also search for Saravis, so I can give Maximus protection from Imperm as well. Special Maximus, dump Managing Garura, send 2 off the Maximus, and like once again, you will very rarely get punished for blind Maximusing this format. Hasn't happened to me yet. So we send Herald and we send Fergie, and now Herald will search the Skull Guardian directly. So now we have Skull Guardian 2 off the Nadir Servant, and then we draw another card. So we draw a Trias, which will come in handy later. And now I can fulfill the entire tribute for Skull Guardian that I just searched by using the Maximus. Now Skull Guardian will search low, and then I'm gonna low, add Barrier, and then Barrier. I add Saravis, and then just special Saravis. Because again, the Nadir Servant is a spell card. It also fulfills the summoning requirements to summon Saravis too. The Nadir Servant literally does every single possible thing you would want for combo with this deck. And now that I have a Trias in hand too, this combo gets really spicy on my opponent's turn as well. So they're gonna Period Rise Map, which I'm just gonna Ash. Yeah, don't want them getting access to Samsara D Lotus if they didn't already open it. And you're gonna opening the Spirit Gates, which I actually just negate with Skull Guardian, which I played in the Gamma. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't playing around the top deck Gamma. My bad. So even though my Skull Guardian Omni Negate gets Gamma, we're still in a fine position. So now Saravis will chain to the Gamma, and now I chain the Trias that I charged with. This puts the low in grave, so that now after Saravis special summons the Saravis in hand, the Gamma summons, and they get the opening search. And now because I tributed the low with the Trias, low can summon itself back again, and now low can place a Blessing. So now I have two activations of Saravis. I can Saravis negate any of their inherent summons, and then I can simply ritual summon again with the Blessing. And they're going to Sprite Out, which I'm not afraid of at all, so I don't even negate it. They're going to normal summon Dark Bending Beast, add Chaos Stunning Beast. Don't really care. They're going to normal summon Chaos Bending Beast or Chaos Stunning Beast, and then I will negate the summon of the Yama, and now they're going to 1-for-1 summon Lotus, and now on the summon of Lotus, I can trigger again special summon Saravis, banishing the Trias. Now I have a Saravis life once again to negate anything they want. Not that it matters, because I also have a double Call by the Grave, one of which I drew off of the free draws of Nadir Servant. So now their Samsara Lotus is kept in check, and they're going to summon back Dark Bending Beast. Last card, Nightmare Pain. Man, they got a pretty crazy hand there. So Nightmare Pain, sack, add Grave Squirmer, and then pitch opening of the Spirit Gates, attempt to summon back, and I'm gonna call by the grave the second Spirit of Yubel. Man, this is this is honestly more of a showcase of why Call by the Grave is a balanced card more so than the Voiceless combos. But you saw you saw how Nadir Servant fixed that hand and gave me an actual very decent board. So here's a game where this hand is like, once again, Nadir Servant looking very nice, but our opponent ashes the pre-prep, so now I couldn't search Serapis to protect the Diviner. But now I normal summon Diviner, I send Trias, and here I failed a toggle, and I feel like it's not imperm because they probably would have impermed the Diviner, so I'm thinking they got Max C here. And because of that, I activate the Nadir Servant first before using Trias. That way, if they Max C me, I can chain Trias to the Max C, so I at least give them one less draw. So now Nadir Servant, Trias summons out, Max C resolves Nadir Servant, dumps Garura, and then I draw a card, add Maximus. I don't have intention of summoning this Maximus, but now Diviner of the Herald will summon out the Low from deck, and I draw a card, draw into Maxi. Low will place Barrier. Barrier will add Saphira. Saphira, dump Prayers, add Skull Guardian, and then Saphira. I will summon Saphira, banishing the Trias. So you give them 2 draws off of this, which is okay, because normally when you lead with Diviner and they max you end up giving them 3 draws. So it's nice that I was at least got them to bait out the Max C with the threat of a draw off the Garura, I suppose. I don't know. The Max C was still kind of early, to be honest. But yeah, this board isn't great besides the Max C, so we're gonna... this board is honestly, it's pretty terrible. Like, this is... any meta deck could probably play through this. But, here, I'm maxing the standby phase and they change Super Poly. Big... People be thinking this does something. Absolute worst mistake you can make in your life. Okay, Super Poly, not good against Voiceless Voice. Okay, here's why. So they're gonna summon Mud Dragon off the Super Poly, and now because my Light Ritual Monster left the field because my opponent's card effect, I get to use the Prayers in Grave effect to summon out Skull Guardian from my deck, and then special summon Low, and then Low places the Blessing. So thank you. Your Super Poly literally improved my board. Okay, I have the same board except now I have an extra Blessing on the field because you let me resummon the Low because you let me summon another Skull Guardian from the Prayer, and you just pitch 2 cards out of your hand. Thank you. So now they're going to summon Rhinoheart, which Rhinoheart, I'm gonna summon the Rhinoheart. I'm going to ritual summon Serapis by sending the second Low from my hand, and then they're going to send Tear Cash. Probably just sacking with 2 mills. Mill absolutely nothing. They're going to Grieve now. Grieve send Halfness. Thank you for the second draw, and now I'm going to Skull Guardian, which is still live by the way because I left the field, so you let me summon the second one. The Prayer second effect comes up way too often against people who are unfamiliar with the deck. And now they're going to Dugaris, which probably gets negated by Serapis. And yeah, that's not gonna lie, if they didn't Super Poly me, I would have probably lost that game. But because they just gave me a free ritual summon for the Serapis in hand, yeah, that was not great for them. Now here is probably the most Centur-Ion-ass game you'll ever see. Okay, normal summon Primera gets Ash. That's really the only thing you can Ash against Centur-Ion, and they pass. I wonder what could be in that hand of theirs. Thinking. So, I'm gonna start with Saphira, and that gets ashed. Not surprising at all. Kind of expected. Now, I do have Prep, and Prep will add Prayers, and we do have the Maximus in hand. Even though Maximus is dead, it does fulfill the entire tribute for a ritual summon of Skull Guardian. so that's still useful. And now we get to summon Skull Guardian. Unfortunate part is, of course, they're gonna have the Veiler of the wild. I mean, of course, but what they passed on one Ash. You know, you know what's in their hand at that point. So yeah, I'm gonna attack over the Primera, and thankfully I drew an Ash for my turn. So they have another one card starter, Tridea. Tridea's gonna get the Primera again, and Primera is gonna get Ash the second time. So good thing is that because their entire hand is like probably hand trapped right now, they also don't have more extenders. So yeah, this is a nice game. Pass the 2 Ash 2 turns in a row. Now I hard draw Survivors, which is actually a very good draw. And now I'm gonna use the second prep in hand to get us the second Skull Guardian, and then I'm gonna sack the Skull Guardian for the Skull Guardian. And is this gonna resolve? No. Yeah, but definitely. You thought cards were gonna resolve this duel? Yeah, we got double hand trap versus triple hand trap. We're gonna enter battle phase, attack, and then main phase 2. They're gonna summon Tridea. At this point, I just chain the Survivors because you know right now I can get it in defense position. Well, it gets 200 more defense. Doesn't really matter. I don't think it really matters if I summon on this turn or next turn either, since I would just be negating something on their turn most likely anyway. So if the shovels back in the deck during the end of next turn, it's fine because we're probably not gonna get to that point. And yeah, Tridea get another Primera number 3. I do not have the third Ash this time, so they're gonna get stand up now, and stand up is gonna discard Tridea, and they're going to get MF, especially the MF, and then they're gonna use stand up Centur-Ion. Now this is a ruling, okay? So the Centur-Ion wording, it says after this effect resolves, synchro summon 1 synchro monster. Very important. Stand up Centur-Ion is not the effect that synchro summons a monster. It is the effect that allows you to synchro summon. So this synchro summon is not a synchro summon by an effect. It is still synchro summon without a chain inherently. Sorry, Coder. By using the 2 monsters. It's just that the field spell lets them synchro summon. It's like IT Masquerena. So because of that ruling, we were allowed to banish it with Soravis. Yeah. Man, I love 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! It's so great. So here we got another classic game of 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, so I have a 1 card starter, 1 play in my hand, so I'm gonna normal summon Diviner, get Imperm. I opened the 1 of Soravis that I run in my deck, get sacked. Oh, never mind, you opened 2 hand traps. Fuck me, I guess. I guess we're not playing this turn. Now, the maxi time was a bit weird. I'm not gonna lie. The maxi timing, you definitely should probably chain maxi to try as unless you're playing around Gamma, I guess. But because of that, I'm perfectly fine because I hard open Blessing. I'm just gonna pass because my idea is on my opponent's turn, I'm going to Trias, Tribute Diviner, summon low, place the trap, put back the Soravis, and then summon Old Man Soravis from deck, and then Old Man can summon back the Soravis, is that I put back with the trap, and then if I negate something with Soravis, I can then ritual summon the Soravis that bounced to my hand because I also have the Blessing face up. So it's kind of in a roundabout way. It's like if I get Staff Iron and everything works out, I do get 2 interruptions from this plus the hand traps. But yeah, I'm going to max C my opponent because you know Master Duel, and my opponent enters battle phase, so I go Trias, and now they're going to max C again. Man, I love max C. I love max C. So now they're gonna get 2 draws out of this. So 1 for Trias and 1 for low, and then I'm gonna use low, and then I get impermed again. Man. Okay, so well, let's see. There's been 6. If you count Soravis, there's been 6 hand traps played in 2 turns of Yu-Gi-Oh! I love it, and my opponent sets 1, so that's probably another one. Either they still bricked or they don't want to commit to maxi, which is fair. So now I'm gonna synchro these 2 off into Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel banished her face down. It's escape. I'm gonna Blessing, attempt to bring back low, and I get belt. Alright, so that's in case you're keeping count, that's 7 hand traps played within the first 3 turns. So now it's my opponent's turn again. Now we're gonna Nightmare Pain. Boy, you think you're gonna be able to play through hand traps too? Think again. So that gets the Ash, and yeah, that's gonna be a pass for my opponent. So now that's 8 hand traps in 4 turns. Nice. Now I finally add back the low, and I'm gonna normal summon low, place the trap, activate barrier. That hard drew barrier gets Ash. Look at this grave. This grave is literally just 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! In a nutshell. I mean, I'm not much better. I only, you know, my opponent my opponent has 6 hand traps. I only have 5 hand traps on my side. So clearly, you know, man, yeah, this game is so cooked, bro. Anyway, I can add Saphir anyways. I own the trap, so yeah, that's gonna be game over after 5 turns of absolutely nothing happening. So here's a very interesting game. This was the game that I was playing my old build that I still had enemy controllers and tactics in it. Okay, and this was the game that prompted me to switch my build. Because well, you'll see what happens. So my opponent's playing Rescue Ace, right? And not just any old Rescue Ace. They're gonna normal summon. They're gonna add Airlifter, descend the Airlifter for Die Bellstar. Very, very interesting maneuver. Again, I got no hand traps because I don't run hand traps. I didn't run hand traps in this build, which is a big mistake. Now they're going to normal summon Hydrant, send Hydrant for OSS, summon Snake Eyes Ash, and now they're playing Tempo too. They're playing the full Snake Eyes package with Rescue Ace plus Tempo with Flamberge. Now there's an IP on the field. Now I gotta deal with. You're telling me I gotta deal with the Rescue Ace board plus the Snake Eyes board plus the Promethean Princess. Man, thank you very much. So yeah, here comes the Raging Phoenix, and now these are going to go into SP Little Knight, and now they're going to summon Turbulence. Turbulence will set 4, so because they're gonna have 4 sets plus the IP Masquerade in the back row, and yeah, I'm gonna have to play through this. So do I end up playing through this? Well, we'll see. So I draw tag. So I drew basically all of my going second non-engine for in this build. Enemy controller, tactics, and I guess Nadir counts as well. So I'm gonna leave with Nadir, see if they have an Ash or anything. They don't, so I'm gonna send Entis, and then Entis, I guess, start popping the cards. I popped the Rescue, which is probably the worst one, and they're going to, besides Emergency, because Emergency they would have just changed it. So I'm going to activate Saphir, they're going to chain Emergency, get the Preventer. I'm not going to call, by the way, the Preventer. All that does is prevent the, no pun intended, all that does is prevent the Hydrant from coming back, but I got bigger concerns. Now I'm going to Tactics take, and they don't do anything, so I end up taking the Flamberge, and now they're going to extinguish the Flamberge, which I'm like, do I want them to? I guess because if they extinguish the Flamberge, it prevents me from using Flamberge. It doesn't prevent them, so I think they still get the floating effect on the Flamberge. I don't know. I've never seen my opponent extinguish their own stolen Flamberge before. Not gonna lie, but yeah, because of that, I actually negate that with Saravis. So now I know all they have is a Contain left in their back row, so at least we've dealt through the back row. Now I'm going to put back the SP Little Knight, Special Summon the Maximus by banishing the Intis, and they're going to summon back the IP, and they're going to use IP, and I sack the Flamberge to take the IP, thinking that well, what could they make now that I've chained enemy controller to the IP. Okay, so now that it's not a card that they control anymore, it's now my card. So what are they doing? They're making. I didn't know you could still do this, but apparently that works. So now they're gonna go into Underworld Goddess. All right, I didn't know that was even a possibility. Not gonna lie, but yeah. Now the only thing is that still negates my Maximus, and now I have to use my Callbite on the Flamebird. But it's good because now they're out of fire monsters in the field, so I don't have to worry about the princess anymore. So after all that, again, Nadir Servant coming in clutch once again, because it gave me the Maximus, so I can still tribute the Maximus for Skull Guardian using the Saphira Engrave, and now I can add low and normal summon low. I know their last backer was contained, and it does nothing because they don't control any rescue ace monsters. So I'm gonna add Barrier, add Saravis, put these two back, and then I'm gonna enter battle phase and just do like a bunch of damage. I unfortunately cannot. I would have Dino Mondoed and probably like spun back the SP Little Knight or spun back the Temple or spun back something. But that's the one downside of Nadir. You know, Nadir does have a drawback. I cannot go into the extra deck anymore, so no Dino Mundo for me. And now, after breaking all that board, I opened probably the best going second hand I could have in this build with both enemy controller and tactics plus Nadir, and I broke through the board. And it's not going to matter because my opponent, this is 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! Because my opponent resolved their entire combo. Even if I break their entire board, it doesn't matter because they're just going to have guaranteed follow-up on the next turn. So now they get the Extinguish back, they get Hydrant's effect, and they're going to have Emergency too. So even if I negate the Hydrant, they can still Emergency out whatever they want. So there's another preventer to sack the Hydrant. And now they're going to Tactics, which I'm going to summon out the second Skull Guardian, and they should have just taken the low, but they took the Skull Guardian for some reason, and now because I summoned the SP Little Knight comes out, because Divine Temple is another form of follow-up, and at this point I lost the game. I have no more interruptions. And they're going to sack they're going to make Phoenix pop the barrier, and yeah, frankly it's over. They're summoning back Preventer gets their HQ, and now they're going to contain the Skull Guardian, and yeah, we got a time limit win, but I 100% lost that game. So, and at this point, I had to switch builds. I had to switch to Handtraps. It was like I did everything I possibly could with this build. I drew all of my going second cards that I ran in that build. I broke their board. I still lost. So at that point, if that's not even if I can't even win games where that happens, right? Like is there really any point like not playing hand traps anymore? Like I have to switch to hand traps. That's pretty much the only way. In my logic is like that. I pretty much just have to go with the hand traps if I want to be competitive with this deck anymore. So that's how you saw me. That's how I arrived at the build that you saw. So even after the 50 plus games I played with this deck, I'm still not really quite sure where to rank this among the best decks in Master Duel. I certainly don't think it's top tier, like Snake Eyes, Fire Kings, or Yubel. I think it's certainly at least a tier below those decks. But then where it fits among decks like, tier or branded, or I guess Centur-Ion now, among the tier 2-ish decks, that is still up for debate. And there's a Duelist Cup next month, so we'll see how well this deck performs in the Duelist Cup in this format. And in the future, when 10x driving comes, this deck has an advantage in that matchup, as I mentioned, with a Meteor Burst Dragon, so it might even get better in the future. Who knows? We'll just wait and see. Basically, this deck isn't trash. So if you have the UR to spend to make this deck, like this is a fine deck. You're not gonna regret making this deck. It's certainly very capable. Like it's at least good. I'll say that. So like it's not a waste of UR to make this deck.